It's war, baby!
It's wartime, I got my hat on backwards, and it's time to freaking party.
Let's pin down our enemies and start attacking their life totals directly. This deck lays down that fire like it's free, and does it so fast and efficiently that they will have no idea what's really hurting them. Actually, they're gonna have a really good idea. We take it in chunks. Like a gnat that just kind of won't stop bugging them, we keep touching them progressively less lightly, until it eventually leads to a lethal licking that they wish they took care of sooner. Only problem is, for them, we can do this at instant speed, which means if we save up the mana, we can keep up protection at instant speed. So if they ever have that really funny haha idea of getting rid of our stuff, we can just spend some of that mana to stop them. And if they don't get that idea, we can use all the resources we saved up from them not trying it and kill them even harder. That seems like a lot for a $30 Boros deck until you see exactly what Taii Wakeen can do.
Taii Wakeen, perfect shot. For red and a white, you get a 2/3 legendary creature, Human Mercenary, that says whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to a creature equal to that creature's toughness, draw a card. It also has X and tap, and says if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a opponent or player this turn, it deals that much damage plus X instead.
So when I started building this, I thought that I could go one of two main ways. Either A, I built a deck that has a ton of 1 damage pingers that touch as many of our opponent's creatures as we can, while our stuff gets to just swing in uncontested. Option 2, you still do that, but you forgo the creatures swinging altogether and use creatures that can deal non-combat damage to face, and clear out that way. Take a guess as to which one sounded best. Come on, guess! You know, it was almost not even a decision I had to make. Like, seriously, what's my option for good red and white creatures? A Taii? Sun Titan? Yeah, I also eat my Dino Nuggies with ketchup because range is too spicy. See, I wanted something more for this one. I mean, it is the deck that our decklist tier member wanted, so Filthy Casual, I made this in a way that will feel really good for you. Almost like cheating. Well, I mean, as close to cheating as a $30 budget deck Boros can get. I don't know how close that is. Along with that, I had a funny idea thrown to me by a Discord member too, and that made this whole plan kind of go sideways, in a good way. Add Zerta the Dawnwaker as a companion. So, with those options locked into place, there wasn't much else to do other than go ahead and build the thing. And to be honest, that's where things get really serious here. So if every permanent needs to have an activated ability, then what kind of creature chaos did I pack into this monstrosity? Well, I'll tell you about that right after our sponsor. I keep getting asked what the best way to buy decks is, and I did some research for my Discord members. I tested all the sites that I thought were standard, and then I saw Manapool. I never heard of them, so I tested them out. They were so easy to use that I reached out to them just so I could be affiliated with them. Every issue I've had with other sites was essentially fixed with Manapool. They have a better store market, so you don't have to deal with forced price minimums. They have a live card optimizer that will give you multiple options for purchases, whether you care about packages, price, or both. Not to mention they have a market of millions of cards, so you can find pretty much all the cards you'll ever need for your deck. I have been blown away by how efficient, clean, and friendly they are, and their customer service was amazing too. So if you want to buy this deck or any of the many decks that I built for this channel, then you can always find a link in the video description. It's the best Magic market I have ever experienced. Full stop.
Spear Spewer. For a red, you get a 0/2 creature goblin warrior with defender that says tap, Spear Spewer deals 1 damage to each player.
This was the genuine catalyst that started to get my Bruin mind a churning. Obviously, there are ways to deal damage by casting non-creature spells, like casting Flame Breather. The problem with those creatures that care about those spells is that they won't do you much good when you have a handful of creatures and not those spells. The second problem comes in right here. If they're non-creature damage dealers like that, you have to cast something on top of it. Who's gonna give the extra mana to the sniper and make them hurt people this turn? And with the Spear Spewer types, you don't have to cast anything else. Look, if all you want to do is cast Big Score 50 times and kill them with 1,000 otter-themed paper cuts, then you're absolutely free to build that version of this deck. The only issue is that it's slow, and my eyes hurt when I stare off into space for too long. So we gotta hurry this up somehow. That's where the beauty of the strategy I put together comes in. The other way, most of the stuff in this deck is sorceries and artifacts anyway, so that does kind of force you to do all the stuff on a single turn. Because if you didn't have the spewer type creatures, what you're essentially going to have to do is pay for Taii Wakeen to do their ability, and then you're going to have to do everything on your turn and keep some mana open just in case you want to protect your board, which either means A, for sure you're going to get rid of one of your triggers for your non-creature spells things going off at a minimum, or you're going to put less damage out per the one trigger you could do, which is suboptimal. The solution here, well, it turns out it's what I built for you. Just keep the creature base narrowed down to the ones with those activated abilities. Look at Lobber Crew. Now that's a card of all time. In fact, I think you could test other cards with its stats. See if it's even worth playing at that point. Let's call it the Lobber Crew test. Can it survive 3 damage? Of course it can. Does it untap if you do the right thing? Does a witch weigh as much as a duck? Does it cost 3 mana? Yeah? Clearly this is a specimen of high caliber. Okay, there's like 5 people that will actually get that joke, and only 2 of them will find it funny. I guess 3 if you count me. So if you know, you know, you know? No? You. So unless the ability says it can only be activated as a sorcery, you can now take all the mana and spells that we have and hold on to them for the perfect time to strike. If we truly wanted to, we could just wait till right before our turn and then pay all the mana that we have left into Taii Wakeen and tap the Lobber Crew to deal an insane amount of damage to all of our opponents. There's nothing they can do about it. And if instead we get threatened with a good time during somebody's turn with something like a board wipe, we can still show them that we are Groot with something like Rootborn Defenses and use whatever is left in the piggy bank to Mega Bolt the people sitting across the table from us, being as ultimately efficient as possible. Plus, half of them let you do the thing anyway. Bitterspit Gremlin, Thermal Alchemist, Lobber Crew, Nettle Drone, Unruly Catapult, all of them have a chance at untapping if you do the thing that they care about. But even if you don't, you can focus on jamming as much mana into the decks as possible right before the start of your turn. That at least was my thought process. It was much simpler for me to build it with that certainty, and that makes it even more efficient and even quicker. But then comes the hard part. Getting the cards. We don't necessarily get to draw a ton of cards in these colors, at least not without discarding them first. So if we have that first ability on Taii Wakeen, then we might as well take advantage of it. And hey, if we get to kill them in the process, it's just a bonus.
Fiery Confluence. For 2 red, you get a sorcery that says choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. You can have Fiery Confluence deal 1 damage to each creature, or have Fiery Confluence deal 2 damage to each opponent, or destroy target artifact. Why would you destroy an artifact?
Yeah, most of you probably see where this is going. And for those of you who don't, let me spell it out for you. W-H-E-R-E space T-H-I-S space. We're gonna run a ton of effects that deal ping damage en masse, just like this Confluence. The Confluence is special though, in the way that it not only lets us do a fun cocktail of 3 abilities, but it also is probably the most potent game ender. That 2 damage to each opponent part will be repeated 3 times if you really want it to be. And I was curious if that would count as 3 separate instances. It is. So to my absolute amusement, it'll count each mode, even if it's chosen more than once as separate instances of damage. So if we were to boost all of the damage by like 5, then we cast it. 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. So with 1 4-mana spell plus 5, which is 9 mana, you've dealt 21 damage to each opponent. But imagine we also do 1 instance of that creature damage. That's 6 damage to each creature on the field. And for the most part, that's probably gonna be most, if not all, the creatures on the field. So I just added a ton of cards that let us ping a massive amount of creatures. And some creatures that ping 1 target of any caliber. And plus we try and keep it on the ones that we don't control, because if we do all of them, we're gonna be just as sad. But if you look at a card like End the Festivities, it is absolutely insane for us. It just costs 1 mana, and we get to dome all of our opponents for 1 plus Taii Wakeen stuff, kill all the creatures, and then salt the earth with all the planeswalkers that happen to be on the field. Makes it quite clear where we stand on the Geneva Conventions, while simultaneously inventing new things for them to add to it. Others are modal, but honestly aren't useful, like fire magic, It's a simple choice. Either spend 5 mana for 2 extra damage per creature or 5 mana for 5 extra damage per creature. If you choose the former, I like where your head's at, but you gotta keep it together, bud. Come on. Ultimately, this is a sign that they should just pack it up now. This deck has 2 main goals. Wipe the board in an annoyingly precise way and stay packed up with blockers. And if they don't get the message, then we just send them the fingers of their loved ones until we make 10 amazing points. And if you're creative, 20. And if there are any stragglers, just pick them off. Prodigal Pyromancer is a spicy Tim that we have that we can use to pick off both creatures or just rub more salt into the wound of a player. We have a few things like this that can bolt any target, and while it isn't quite as much of a pure destruction dealer as things like Lobber Crew, again, the Lobber Crew test, the ability to snipe any creature that we can see can actually be really useful. Because like, if somebody makes an Elvish Mystic, we could just bolt it and then draw a card. I mean, even if it isn't their creature, we could do our own.
Brash Taunter. For 4 and a red, you get a 1/1 creature goblin with indestructible that says when Brash Taunter is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. And you can pay 2 and a red and tap it, and Brash Taunter fights another target creature.
It's Taunter time. This Taunter is built Tonka tough, which means if we ever want to shoot it, we're well within our right to. Not only does it give us a good outlet to tactically discharge our unspent Tim ammo, but it also gives us a fun little interaction if we have that damage boosted. We get to double dip on Taii Wakeen Phoenix's ability here. It adds to whatever damage we end up doing to the Taunter, and then it adds it again to whatever the Brash Boy wants to deal to a player. That effectively doubles the damage that we put into X and can make any of our creatures that just do 1 damage do any target a lot better to the other target. And we can even use the really strong creatures against them by choosing to fight a huge creature just to deal some damage to face. And if you're good and you're patient with what you do, you can choose to wait until the last minute like you should, and then get the most out of the Taunter. Block with the Taunter, tap, fight that thing, it's massive, and then deal damage to face. You get a blocked creature and you get a bunch of damage through. You should always do the thing as humanly or inhumanly late as possible. That way you make all the decisions with the most information you can. That's just normal Magic rules. I mean, that's literally the problem with all of you millennials and Gen Z kids. You've never had to wait for anything. It's always in response, I'll counter it. No, we should probably do a round of priority. Yeah, what if somebody else has the counter, huh? What if it doesn't need to be you who saved the day? I am both Gen Z and guilty of this. Just wanted you to know that. Despicable. But you don't know that. You look at me, I'm bald. Oh, unk. And while I could tell you about the desert synergy I put in here, I won't really. Look, there's a bunch more tap lanes in here than I usually put in decks because the deserts actually really work well in here. What I really wanted to talk about is some cards that I didn't include and why.
And I know a lot of you are probably wondering when I'm going to talk about these cards or if I'd even talk about them at all. And because I like to snuff the light out of people's eyes, I'll mention them now. Damage doublers like Angrath's Marauders, City on Fire, Fiendish Duo, and Fiery Emancipation. They actually suck in this deck, believe it or not. Aside from the fact that if we included this, we'd lose Zerda as our companion, these would do pretty much nothing for us. This is an example of Magic being what I call stupid and weird. Anyway, here's an example. If you have a Lobber Crew, a City on Fire, and your commander out, let's say you tap the commander for X = 7, and then when it resolves, you tap the Lobber Crew and attempt to deal that much damage to each opponent. The question I ask you, how would you stack those replacement effects? Haha, that's a trick question. I tricked you. You don't get that choice. That's actually for the affected player to decide. Yeah, anytime damage doubling and damage increasing replacement effects, or just replacement effects in general for that matter, are applied at the same time, the player or the controller of the permanent receiving that damage or effect or whatever is the one who decides the order that they get applied. Thank you, Rule 616.1. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I had a ruling in the last video that apparently it was wrong, so I should probably check that. I too hate fun. Also, I love the abbreviation APNAP, active player, non-active player, because I always think of it as APNAP, like the Aflac duck. Anyway, back to seriousness. The example I gave before wouldn't add the 7 damage to make it 8 and then triple that to 24. Instead, the player receiving the damage gets to make the decision to either triple the 8 damage or triple the one first. So if this were the interaction on the table, the opponents have a choice. Either take 10 or take 24. Which of course would be decided in ap-nap order. But seriously, that's awful. I hate this game. Why do I even play it?
But that doesn't mean we don't have fun stuff to do at all. There are actually a bunch of things that we have available to us if we just decided that we wanted to increase that budget a little bit. So let's get into that piece of the pay-to-win pie.
Goblin Sharpshooter. For 2 and a red, you get a 1/1 creature goblin that says Goblin Sharpshooter doesn't untap during your untap step, but whenever a creature dies, you untap Goblin Sharpshooter, and you can tap it to have Goblin Sharpshooter deal 1 damage to any target.
Yeah, this is pretty obvious. That'd be much better than most of the creatures that we have in here. I was thinking Nettle Drone at first, but maybe even just taking out Tim. It's just strictly better for pretty much the same kind of stats. So yeah, it doesn't even pass the Lava Crew test. Loser. But the Sharpshooter is just much better. I mean, if we're trying to get some card draw or just wipe the board, we can quite easily tack on 5 additional damage and then take care of almost the entire board. Or do it one at a time and then increase it and go for it. Like, it's up to you.
And so here's the fun thing that I figured out way too late in the process. Kind of ashamed to admit it, but here we are. Admitting it. I just realized that if you wipe the board, every single creature that dies gets to untap Goblin Sharpshooter. So if you do a one-sided board wipe, for every creature your opponents control that died, Goblin Sharpshooter untaps for each of those. And if you boosted damage, that's boosted damage for each dead creature. So let's say you wiped 10 creatures, where X equals 5. Then you get to deal 60 damage, divided as you choose among 10 different targets. And that's probably gonna be face. And honestly, that's probably gonna be death. And if anything, it's probably going to be more than 10 creatures. So crazy stuff to figure out this late in the game. But yeah, Goblin Sharpshooter, it makes sense why you're as expensive as you are.
And honestly, while the Stone Speaker Crystal is pretty cool, we probably would be much better off including the obvious rock that you should put in any deck that has Zerda as a companion or a commander, Basalt Monolith. Come on, it's just good honest fun, reducing the untapability, making infinite mana. We have our commander out and a one-sided damage pinger. Like, that will literally end the game. So having that as an option is pretty radical. And big score is nice for us to help draw and get a little bit of ramp, but Pyrohemia is gonna be a really good include for us if we truly need the cards, because we can just vanilla activate Pyrohemia and deal 1 damage to each creature in each player, and all the 1 toughness creatures that get myrtled will draw us cards. Easy as. And when we're ready to end it all, we can min-max our output and input for a flurry of damage dealing for some universal unhealth care for you as well, so just be careful with that. Forbidden Orchard is better than the exotic one. I don't usually talk about lands, but this one gives them a 1-drop. You could bolt for 1 and draw a card. It's literally amazing for you. Plus, if they get the 1/1, they might not hate you as much because you're at least giving them tokens for at least 30 seconds? I don't know, that's up to you, honestly. And finally, there are a bunch of other cards that would also be amazing in a deck like this, but would break that restriction that Zerda places on the deck. So if you truly wanted to include those, I'd take some time, just figure out what you think would work as a replacement and swap Zerda into the 99. And then you can put whatever of these in. Notable ones would include Heartflame Duelist and Radiant Scrollwinder. Making all the instant and sorcery damage lifelinking means you gain a metric ton of life each and every time you wipe the board. Chandra's Incinerator is just brutalism for the sake of it. It makes any damage that we launch at the face casually just airstrike a creature with a follow-up ICBM of once again increased power. And Fated Firepower is a static Taii Wakeen ability. It's one of the few damage increasers that I've seen that I think are actually worth running here, but it might entirely shut down that draw part of Taii Wakeen, so just be careful. There are a few more in the considering tab of my Moxfield page, and if you want to add them in, go ahead and copy the list. I put all the recommendations in on that considering tab below. Just make whatever swaps you want and copy paste it into your Manapool thing, because I have an affiliate link. I'd recommend you use Manapool. Just give it a shot. These things are made to be tweaked and modified anyway, so if you want me to know what kind of changes you made, leave them in the comments. Maybe other people will find them just as fun.
And if you've already subscribed and want to more directly support the channel, you could always become a member. You get access to all the bloopers and behind the scenes, and also receive some special perks, like our Decklist tier member Filthy Casual, who requested this video, or Picard 001, who hasn't yet requested a deck. This tier has access to the deck list request channel in the Discord and gets my biggest thank yous. So yeah, thank you. And we also have our higher power members: Jennifer Griffith, Ezelvor, Faraday, Angela Ryder, White Chill, Christopher Kusaba, Philoppa, Charles, Peanut Butter Steve, A-Train, Hayao, and all of the budget supporters. Thank you for letting me do what I do.